I play for food?" The small, steady voice of a 12-year-old cut through the glittering chatter in the Continental Hotel lobby like a bell. Conversations froze. All eyes turned toward the little girl standing in the doorway, a child who didn't match the evening gowns and tailored suits around her. Amelia Washington clutched a worn backpack to her chest as if it were armor. Her clothes were plain, a size too big, but her gaze was fixed on the gleaming Steinway Grand beneath the crystal chandeliers. "Who let her in?" someone whispered. "Where's security?" The irony was hard to miss. This was a gala meant to raise money for disadvantaged youth. Amelia had spent the last week drifting between shelters. Passing the hotel earlier, she'd felt an irresistible pull to walk inside. Victoria Sterling, the event organizer and heir to an old fortune, approached with a cool smile. "Sweetheart, this isn't the place for you. There's a fast food spot 2 blocks away." "I just want to play," Amelia said, her voice stronger now. "One song for a plate of food." A ripple of laughter spread through the room. "She thinks she can play?" a man scoffed. "She probably doesn't even know Middle C," another guest added. But Amelia didn't flinch. Her posture held a quiet dignity, as if she carried a secret none of them could see. From the back, Dr. Robert Chun, an acclaimed concert pianist, watched closely. He'd noticed the way the girl looked at the piano, not with curiosity, but recognition. "Victoria," he said, "maybe we should let her try. This event is supposed to discover young talent." Victoria's laugh rang sharp. "Robert, be serious. A child like this has never had real lessons." None of them knew that music had been Amelia's first language. Until age 8, she'd lived with her grandmother, a gifted pianist who taught her every day. When her grandmother passed and foster care followed, Amelia carried both the grief and a talent she barely understood. While the crowd whispered, Amelia's fingers twitched as though tracing invisible keys, a habit that had comforted her through countless storms. If you love stories of quiet strength and unexpected triumph, tap subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. There's much more to come. Victoria folded her arms, savoring the spotlight. "Fine," she said with theatrical flair. "One song, our choice. If you manage it, I'll pay for a full dinner. But if you fail, you leave and don't return." Gasps and amused murmurs rippled through the guests. Amelia never moved. Her eyes stayed on the piano, and in her mind she could almost hear her grandmother Betty's gentle voice guiding her next note. "When people try to belittle you," her grandmother's voice whispered in Amelia's memory, "let the music answer. Music never lies, and it knows no prejudice." "I accept," Amelia said, her voice calm and clear. Dr. Chun watched, intrigued. Decades of judging young pianists had honed his instincts, and something about this child set them buzzing. "Perfect," Victoria declared, clapping her manicured hands. "Now the piece." She scanned the room, searching for a challenge meant to embarrass. "James," she called to a lounge pianist near the bar. James smirked. "How about Beethoven's For Elise? Everyone thinks they can play it. Let's see if she can." Laughter rippled through the guests. To amateurs it sounded simple, but any pianist knew that flawless execution required refined skill and years of practice. The perfect trap. "Excellent," Victoria said with mock sweetness. "A tune every beginner claims to know. No excuses." Amelia simply nodded and stepped toward the Steinway, each quiet footstep brimming with resolve. A few people in the back shifted uneasily. There was a gravity in her small frame that felt out of place for a 12-year-old. She adjusted the bench with precise, practiced movements. Dr. Chun felt a chill. Those were the habits of someone trained, not a novice. "Look at that," Victoria muttered to her circle. "She doesn't even know how to sit." But Dr. Chun saw the opposite, the perfect posture, the poised hands hovering in a textbook arc over the keys. Memories swelled in Amelia's mind. Her grandmother, Betty Washington, one of the first black pianists to audition for the City Conservatory in the 1960s, had faced closed doors despite undeniable talent. Betty turned her home into a community studio, teaching neighborhood children on a battered upright and telling young Amelia, "Music is a universal language. Play from the heart, and people will listen with their souls, not their eyes." Those countless hours at her grandmother's side had etched technique and passion deep into Amelia's bones. Even after Betty passed and foster care followed, music stayed with her, played on imaginary keyboards through long nights in shelters. "We're waiting," Victoria said sharply, drumming her fingers. "Or have you given up?" Amelia inhaled, placed her hands on the keys, and the first note rang out like crystal. Conversations halted. It wasn't the timid sound of a child guessing at the melody. It was the confident strike of someone who understood every nuance of the instrument. Dr. Chun stepped closer, his professional curiosity now full admiration. The attack, the sustain, the control of tone, these came only from years of serious study. "Coincidence," Victoria muttered, though her voice wavered. Then Amelia began the familiar theme of Für Elise. Each phrase poured out pure and effortless. No hesitation, no stumble, only music that seemed to breathe with her. The dynamics swelled and softened like tides, the pauses between notes carrying as much meaning as the melody itself. The grand hall fell into a reverent hush. Every guest, from the back row to the marble staircase, stood caught in the quiet power of a young pianist who needed no words to speak for her worth. The champagne flutes hung motionless in midair. Conversations died away. Even the servers froze, trays poised, as a single sound filled the grand hall. A 12-year-old girl sat at the Steinway, spinning music so breathtaking it felt as if the room itself were holding its breath. Victoria Sterling's stomach tightened. This was not the public embarrassment she had planned. The little stunt she'd arranged was slipping out of her control. Amelia played on, lost in the current of sound flowing through her like a force of nature. One question seemed to echo through every mind present. Who is this child, and what story is hidden in her music? As Amelia reached the most demanding passages of Für Elise, Dr. Robert Chun felt his pulse quicken. 4 decades of evaluating young pianists had sharpened his ear, and what he heard defied logic. Her technique wasn't merely good, it was extraordinary. The cascading arpeggios that trip up seasoned performers poured from her hands like crystal water. Every note carried weight and intention. Every pause breathed with mature artistry. Her use of the sustain pedal showed the control of a concert veteran. "This is impossible," Dr. Chun whispered, stepping closer. Around them, the hush deepened. Guests leaned forward, transfixed. Waiters stood like statues. Victoria sensed the shift and tried to reclaim the room. "She must have memorized it from some online video," she said loudly, but her voice lacked conviction. Kids can copy anything these days. Yet everyone could hear the difference. Amelia wasn't copying. She was interpreting. The phrasing, the subtle dynamics, the emotional depth all spoke of years of disciplined study and a lifetime of experience far beyond her age. Dr. Chun had heard countless prodigies, 5-year-olds dashing off Mozart, teenagers conquering Rachmaninoff, but he had rarely witnessed such a fusion of flawless technique and soulful maturity, especially from someone so young, in circumstances so unlikely. The melody swelled toward its triumphant return. Amelia's fingers moved with a familiarity that only thousands of hours of practice could create. Inside the music, memories stirred. She heard her grandmother Betty's voice. "Music isn't about striking the right notes, my dear. It's about telling the story only you can tell." Betty Washington had been more than a teacher. She was a pioneer. In the 1960s, when black pianists were turned away from conservatories and concert halls, Betty transformed her small home into a sanctuary of sound. She welcomed neighborhood children and told them, "The world may say certain things aren't for people like us, but music knows no color, no poverty, no limits. It only knows truth." For 8 precious years, Amelia soaked in that wisdom, learning not just technique, but the very language of composers. Chopin's longing, Beethoven's struggle and triumph, Mozart's crystalline joy. Betty taught her that her own musical voice mattered just as much. Then Betty's sudden passing ripped Amelia from that world. Foster care meant cold dormitories and no piano. For 4 long years, she carried melodies only in her mind, playing invisible keys to keep the music alive. Now, in this glittering hotel ballroom, it all returned. Every lesson, every gentle correction, every word of encouragement flowed through her fingertips as though time had never passed. Dr. Chun leaned toward a fellow professor, eyes wide. "Please tell me you hear what I hear," he murmured. "This child isn't just gifted, she's a phenomenon." Amelia eased into the final coda, shaping the dynamics with breathtaking control, beginning in a whispering pianissimo, rising to a majestic forte, then tapering back to a delicate hush. The last note lingered like a held breath. The hall remained silent, spellbound, as Victoria Sterling felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Victoria's carefully laid plan to embarrass a child had unraveled completely. Instead of proving her prejudices, Amelia was forcing every guest to question what they thought they knew about talent, privilege, and worth. "It has to be a trick," Victoria whispered to her friends. "No one learns piano like that without expensive lessons." Even she heard the desperation in her own voice. Money couldn't buy what this girl possessed, a depth of feeling born from life, not luxury. Amelia shaped the final chords of Fur-Elise with breathtaking delicacy. When the last note faded, she held her hands above the keys, unwilling to break the spell. Then she turned, calm and radiant, no longer a hungry child, but a young artist who had just claimed her place in the world. Dr. Robert Chun broke the silence first, his applause echoing like distant thunder. One by one, the entire hall joined in until the Continental trembled with genuine acclaim. Panic flickered across Victoria's face. The humiliation meant for Amelia had become a celebration, and the unspoken question in every eye burned her. If we misjudged this child so badly, what else have we been wrong about? Amelia stayed seated, letting the applause wash over her. Not pride, power. She had proven her point, and she knew it. Dr. Chun stepped forward, eyes bright with awe. "Child," he said gently, "where did you study? Your teacher must be extraordinary." Amelia met his gaze. "My grandmother taught me. She said music is the one thing no one can take away." The words struck him like lightning. "Your grandmother? What is your full name?" "Amelia Washington." Dr. Chun drew a sharp breath. "Washington? Are you Betty Washington's granddaughter?" Amelia nodded. The hall buzzed. "My goodness," Dr. Chun whispered, overcome. Betty Washington was one of the greatest pianists this country ever knew, a virtuoso who should have played the world's great stages, but was kept out by prejudice. She became a legendary teacher, shaping generations of musicians. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the audience as recognition spread. Victoria's eyes darted from face to face, her composure slipping. The girl she had tried to belittle had just revealed a legacy far greater than anyone in the room could have imagined. Betty Washington's name still carried weight in music circles, a teacher who could turn raw talent into brilliance. "But that was decades ago," Victoria said, her voice suddenly defensive. "And even if the story is true, she's still a homeless child crashing a private event." Amelia rose from the piano bench, the quiet power of her presence making several guests instinctively step back. "Miss Sterling," she said, voice steady and clear, "you're right about one thing. I shouldn't be here tonight." The room stilled. "I should be in New York preparing for my recital at Carnegie Hall next week." A stunned silence followed. "My name is Amelia Washington," she continued. "I'm the youngest classical pianist ever accepted into Juilliard's Young Artists program, and the current national champion for performers under 15. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "I'm not here for food or money," Amelia added. Dr. Chun's eyes widened as the pieces clicked into place. The documentary, he murmured. You're making the documentary. Exactly, Amelia nodded. I'm working with PBS on a project about bias and access to the arts. My producer asked me to attend charity events like this, disguised as a child with no resources, to see how people truly treat someone they assume is beneath them. The revelation landed like a thunderclap. You're filming us? Victoria blurted, scanning the room for cameras. Yes, Amelia replied calmly. High-definition audio and video. Everything tonight has been documented for national broadcast. That's illegal, Victoria protested. Actually, Dr. Chun said with quiet satisfaction, you signed image releases when you bought your ticket. It's right there in the fine print. Guests began whispering, some pulling out their phones to check their tickets. The air buzzed with panic. The first part of the documentary, Amelia continued, unfazed, shows how talent is ignored when it doesn't match privileged expectations. The second part reveals how so-called patrons of the arts react when real art appears from unexpected places. I simply captured people's true behavior when they thought no one was watching. Dr. Chun stepped forward, respect in his eyes. What will you do with the footage? It airs nationwide next month, Amelia said. I also share shorter versions on my YouTube channel. A similar video from Boston already has over 2.5 million views. People are ready to see what hidden bias really looks like. The crowd murmured, realizing how public this night would soon become. Victoria stood frozen, the color draining from her face. Mrs. Sterling, Amelia said, her voice ringing through the silent hall. You've spent the entire evening telling me people like me don't belong here, that we have no value or talent. Tomorrow the world will see exactly who you are. Victoria opened her mouth, but no sound emerged. The weight of the moment stole every word. Dr. Chun glanced around at the uneasy guests. How many of these events have you filmed? This is the 12th, Amelia replied evenly. And it's always the same. People claiming to champion art and education, yet quick to dismiss someone based on appearance alone. She turned to Victoria one last time. The difference between you and me, Mrs. Sterling, Amelia said softly, is that I never needed this room's approval to prove my worth. Miss Sterling, Amelia said, her voice steady enough to reach every corner of the silent hall. When my grandmother passed, I really was homeless for a time, and I learned something you can't buy. Dignity doesn't come from wealth or status. It comes from how we treat others when we think no one is watching. The room went utterly still. Every guest knew their words and actions that night would soon be judged by millions, and none of them had a defense. Amelia calmly gathered the small recorder from her backpack. One question lingered in the heavy air. How many others had misjudged her, only to discover too late that she could reveal their true character to the world? 6 months later, Victoria Sterling stared out the window of her modest apartment as a black limousine stopped in front of Carnegie Hall. Amelia Washington, elegant in a concert gown, stepped out to greet cheering fans before her debut as the youngest soloist of the season. The PBS documentary Faces of Discrimination had gone viral, over 15 million views on YouTube alone. Headlines blared, "Charity organizer exposed for elitism in viral video." Victoria lost her place in every cultural society. Her luxury event business collapsed, and she now worked quietly as an assistant in a small law office, struggling to rebuild a reputation that might never recover. Meanwhile, Dr. Robert Chun became Amelia's mentor, guiding her rising career. Embarrassed by its own role, the Continental Hotel launched a scholarship program for underserved young musicians, naming Amelia its first ambassador. Music knows no color, class, or zip code, Amelia said in her first national interview. It only knows truth and passion, and when you have both, no barrier can stop you. The impact was immediate and lasting. Music schools expanded outreach, conservatories revised admissions, and hundreds of gifted students from overlooked communities finally found doors open to them. Victoria, watching Amelia achieve the very greatness she once tried to crush, finally understood the hardest lesson of her life. Dignity and talent cannot be bought, inherited, or measured by wealth or skin color. Amelia's greatest triumph was never revenge. It was proving that true excellence always rises, no matter how many obstacles stand in its way.